Okay, we are back working on Whispering Vale. Um, so last time we've got kind of our new save load buttons essentially kind of functioning a little bit, but we realized that we kind of need some base functionality for the editor before we can really see and you know make sure that all of that functionality is working. So, about to start first prompt here. So, looking at let's have a way of selecting cells and editing the contents of a cell. I'm also going to go ahead and add here um, visual representation of the currently selected cell. Okay, so let's get Claude taking a look at that and see what it comes up to. As it goes through and reads the files, get the map structure, get the editor structure. Oh, not fully awake yet this morning, so we'll see if we run into we ran in yesterday where I just become thoroughly confused by somewhat basic stuff and spend my time going, I don't get it. Or maybe this morning will go a little smoother. All right, so basic cell selection. Cell selection system, which will serve as the foundation for our map editor. So we're going to create a cell selection component for the player controller, implement ray casting to detect which cell the player is pointing at, add visual feedback for the currently covered cell. Cell selection visual representation. Once we can select cells, we need to provide visual feedback, create a blueprint or component to visually highlight the selected cell, add a mesh or effect that clearly shows which cell is currently selected. Implement the editing. I would have preferred if you had waited to start actually making these changes, Claude, until I agreed with your plan, but okay. Create a UI panel for editing the selected cell's properties, add functionality to modify walls, floor, and ceiling meshes, implement changes that update the map cell data in real time. Okay. One thing I'm thinking of as it's talking about this, we need basic kind of like camera controls and whatnot also for the editor player controller so that we can kind of move around the map and that. But we'll let this create its files, make the changes, all that jazz. Continue. Oh. Player controller, player controller. Begin play. Yeah, no, it's this is like that XKCD um update to the old comic where it's like developers wasting time because they're waiting on a compile. Now we're wasting time because we're waiting on the LLM to finish writing our code for us. All right, so let's see. Implemented the core functionality of the map editor, cell selection, cell visual highlighting, cell editing. Added those three components. Cell editing, next steps. Okay, so we need to create UMG UI for cell editing, a UI widget that shows properties for the selected cell and allows editing. It controls for toggling walls, changing floor/ceiling meshes. Connect the widget to the map editor player controller. Set up default message. Create and assign default meshes for walls, floors, and ceiling. Add these to the cycle wall at selected cell function to toggle between options. Add mouse and keyboard controls. Implement left click to select a cell. Add key bindings for toggling walls. WAS to toggle northeast, southwest walls. Okay, this is a weird way to go about it, but okay. Extend cell highlighter. Improve the visual feedback for the selected cell. Consider adding different highlight colors for different cell states. Walkable versus non-walkable. Blueprint implementation notes. To set up the system in Blueprint, add the cell selection component to your map editor player controller. Okay, create an instance of the cell highlighter in your level or spawn it at runtime. Create a UMG widget for cell editing and connect it to the controller events. Implementation follows a modular approach where cell selection component handles selection logic, cell highlighter provides the visual feedback, map editor player controller coordinates everything, and the map manager handles the actual cell data and visuals. Okay. Well, let's jump in here and make sure that this, at the very least, compiles. Okay, and yeah, so all those changes build fine. Okay, so before we get into this, let's go ahead and have Claude add our basic kind of camera controls. Update the controller to have some basic camera controls. So we can move around the map. Select our various controls so that we can move around and select our various cells. Should be able to move the camera around using the WASD keys. Rotate with Q and E, and zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. Okay, let's go ahead and have it implement that. So that's just going to help us get all the rest of this figured out. And then I'm not sure about this key bindings for toggling walls. I think we might change. Control functions. Oh. Ooh, too much yawning. Oh. An input config file. Camera on. Ozzy. Hush. Sorry about that. Doggy's making noise. Stop. Yeah, speaking about like, waiting on compile times and waiting for LLMs to write our code for us. I had a job a while back. I was doing development in GWT, Google Web Toolkit, which was the precursor to Angular. And in GWT, you wrote all of your code in Java, and then that code would be transpiled into JavaScript. And so you could write all of your front end in Java, and then end up with JavaScript to run in the browser. But the project that we were working on, yeah, the compilation for that was always quite time consuming. So I think at the height of it, compiling the front end could take 20 to 25 minutes, which is the longest that I've ever had to deal with. I mean, I know there's way larger projects that might have compile times that take hours and whatnot, but yeah. So you'd make your changes and you'd kick off the compilation and you'd sit around for nearly half an hour and then you could go kick it up there and find out that oops, oh, that wasn't right, start over again. So yeah, I think one of the better things that's kind of come out of um, advancements in coding languages and frameworks and IDEs and whatnot is there was definitely kind of a shortened time between change and feedback and understanding, is this working, is this doing what I want. When I first started my first professional programming job, like I didn't even have an IDE. I wrote, it was in Java, and I wrote all of the code in essentially a text editor. I did have syntax highlighting, uh, but no completion, no line completion, no syntax checking and nothing like that. And then I compiled all the code on the command line. I ran Java C, in a terminal to compile the code, and then have to go through, fix the compilation errors, and then, kick up the program and run it and go, check it and debug it, debug a lot with print lines and all of that. But it's an interesting thing to go through, though, and something that can be, I think anyway, very helpful to you as a programmer to do that now and then, right? Shut everything off and just write the code from what you know, you know, and compile it, and then go debug it, and read the code, read and understand the code. Um, it's it's a much slower way to work, but I think as a way of kind of doing that, now and again, it really, I think, helps you understand code better, whatever language you're implementing in better, all that kind of stuff. So, all right, but all right, so we're finished making our updates. So implemented map editor functionality, cell selection, visual highlighting, camera controls, WASD keys for camera, QE for camera rotation, mouse wheel for zooming, right click plus mouse for free look. Yes, excellent. Functions to toggle walls, floors, and ceilings, keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so it put in control plus WASD for toggling walls. Okay, I'll see how that feels. But initially I'm just I'm not sure. Okay, since we encountered some issues with direct code editing, here are the steps to manually integrate the changes. Oh, lovely. I wish you would have just told me that you were having errors. Okay, replace on-cell selection changed method with the version from modified on-cell selection changed.cpp. All right, well, let's refresh this. Okay, cell selection component. What did you want me to do? Replace on-cell selection changed method with the version from modified. Okay, that's map editor player controller. Map editor player controller. Okay, and here's our modified on-cell selection changed. So let's grab you, and then let's find an, is it? On-cell selection changed. Whoops. I don't even have an cell. Okay, on-cell selection changed. So we want to replace this with this, right? Make sure we have that included. And what's your complaint? Member function can be main const. Okay, don't care about that. All right, so we did that, so we do not need this file anymore. We can delete that file. Okay. Create editor UI widget. Create the new widget blueprint based on WV editor interface class. Design the user interface with buttons for each wall, direction, floor, and ceiling. Add text elements to display the currently selected cell coordinates. Okay. Set the editor interface class to your new widget blueprint. Set up input mapping. Ensure the default input INI contains all the action mappings for camera control and wall toggling. Default messages. Enhance the UI. Implement save load. We already have save load. Add level testing. Okay, let's see if we file with these latest changes. And we do not. Okay. Nothing too major. Protected member of... Let's go to the definition of that then. And all of these toggle methods are protected. So let's just go ahead and grab them. I'm gonna guess the spawn cell highlighter also. And let's just make those. Let's pop those up into the public. So that we don't have to do that. All right, let's try that again. Create new level. All right, let's do the same thing with create new level, get selected cell, and get selected cell data. Okay. So we want create new level. You down here. Put you in public. Okay, create new level, get selected cell data. Get selected cell and get selected cell data. We also want you guys to be public. All right, hit it again. Build succeeded. All right, so we compile. Let's make sure that editor doesn't crash or anything like that. Let's go ahead and get that loaded up, and then I think we'll call that an episode. We've got the code in there. Everything compiles, everything's good, and we'll pick up the next episode with implementing the UI, getting all this stuff kind of hooked up, and all of that jazz. Trying to keep things a little more under control. Upgraded default, yep. Assets, no. All right, so let's pop open the editor level. Yeah, okay, so everything's still rendering fine. We're not crashing. We are good with all of that. Excellent. Okay, then we will call this an episode. And yeah, next one after this, we'll start implementing this stuff, get the editor functionality in there and see what's working, what isn't, and go from there. Make sure to, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment, all that. Let me know what you're liking, what you're not liking. And then I will talk to you next time.